Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You're always most welcome. Well now, I haven't done any videos for a week or two, as I suggested was going to be the case, because I've been doing some model making. Here we are, it's early November now in 2022 here in the UK. So it's autumn, it's dark nights, the clocks have gone back, etc, etc. So I thought it was time to get on with some modelling that's long overdue. So, as you can see, I've been working very hard on my Porsche 917K, which is coming along very, very nicely. Now I've got most of the back end is now sorted. We've got the engine in there with the flat 12 engine with the famous sort of fan that it has, cooling fan on the top. However, I mean, as you can see, it's not far off completion now, which is not really before time. I haven't exactly been rapid with this. Had 2.5 years and counting now. It's actually 2.5 years exactly, I think. But I've come across the reason for today's video really is A, bit of an update, and B, to talk about instructions. Rant alert. Well, you know I rant about instructions all the time, but I'm going to have a little specific rant here. It's not the end of the world, but I found a very silly mistake in the instructions, and I wanted to talk in a wider sense about instructions more widely, and again to try and draw attention to the fact that we have this huge gulf in quality of instructions from various manufacturers, and some of them are just ridiculous. Let's talk about this one first though. So this is Fujimi's kit, of course, the Porsche 917K. I'm going to zoom you in so you can see this. Let's have a little nosy at this, shall we, and I can talk you through one or two issues. Now the major issue with these, they're not badly conceived instructions, and they are, they start off sensibly. They have a sprue tree map at the beginning, showing which parts you will and will not use, which is all very sensible. And it's quite logical. It all starts logically. What you immediately spot though is the complete lack of, or almost complete lack of, English. It just gives the most occasional words like D parts on here, and then once you actually get into the build, there isn't any apart from these. You get the headlights in front, and that's it. Everything else is in Japanese. They're also not showing you any alternatives or brand recommendations for their adhesives, for their paints, I should say. And it all starts to get really, really confusing, especially if you're a relative beginner. I think this is going to make your mind have a meltdown, really. So, pictorially, pictorially they're quite good, in fairness, but there's lots of description that you kind of need and you don't get. So, example there, and there's lots of this. And what on earth are they saying? We've got absolutely no idea at all. I mean, Japanese, is one of the more difficult languages to translate, even for software to do. And then you get into all sorts of lack of clarity, things like this where you've got just mumbo jumbo. If you're English speaking or any other language for that matter, you're going to struggle. You can see how I've had to improvise and write in what the various colours should be around the exhaust and the engine and bits like that. But this is where we get into the biggest flaw I found, which has caused complete confusion and problems. Have a look at these lights here. So this is the car's rear lights. It actually has indicators with the brake lights. Now these are literally translated from what they tell you in the paint guide, and it's completely wrong. So it's wrong on two levels. Where it says red, this is what they're telling you at the paint guide at the front, H90 is red. Well, that's completely wrong. Okay, red, the brake lights, are not on the outboard in the way that they've depicted here. The brake light, the red, is on the inboard, which is normal on a car. You have the indicators on the outboard. Any cursory look at a 917 Gulf Porsche will tell you that that's correct. So this is wrong, this instruction. It's also wrong in the context that it shows the larger area in the orange for the indicators, as well as being on the inboard, not the outboard. Shows it as being the larger area. Well, again, that's completely wrong. Now this has caused me some issues, I have to say, and anybody is going to have issues with this. I've been online and I've looked at other people's builds of this kit, and I think almost every one of them that I've seen is wrong through no fault of the builder, because they follow these instructions, which are just wrong. go and look at photographs of a Porsche 917 and the Gulf Porsche from 7071, and you'll see that that is completely wrong. So it's the wrong way round. That long part should be on the outside, and it should be the actual and it should have the brake lights on the inboard, and it should have the indicators on the outboard at the outer edges of the car, as is normal. Now, I didn't realise this, and I did it all wrong like everybody else. I've now had to go back. I don't know if I can show you this. I don't know if it's going to come out too well because it's so small. I've now had to go back and redo this because I've realised that everybody's getting it wrong thanks to Fujimi. And can we get that? So you can now see that I've made the red brake area the biggest area. It still isn't right though, because what I'm going to have to do is invert it. And it's still, I'll never get it 100% right because it still means that the shape is wrong relative to the colours, and short of stripping back all the paint and starting again and inverting them, reversing them round, it was going to be difficult to do that. So I've gone sort of 3/4 of the way to fixing it. Hopefully that'll do. But it just shows you that, you know, sometimes instructions are very, very unclear, not very, very helpful. And there's a classic example if ever I saw it. So that has slowed me down no end because I thought that was just going to be a quick paint job to do my lights, and it's turned into a major thing. And it's only thanks to having the reference material and looking at photographs. And that's what I thought. Why are the brake lights on the outside and the indicators inboard? That doesn't make sense. And then check the photographs of the real car. No, wrong. So that's the first point. But I wanted to make, it started me thinking again about instructions and how misleading they can be when there's mistakes. And it's not the first mistake, there are mistakes in some of the Tamiya instructions even, you know, we've seen mistakes in lots of kits. I don't know if there's any more, I'm almost at the end to be honest, so a lot of the final stages of the build here, just show you this, a lot of these final stages I've already basically pretty much got done. I've just got to put in the mud guards, which I've just painted, sort of mud guard area, wheel arches if you like. I've just painted them. Wheels are already done, all this is done, all this is done. So really all I'm left with to finish the model really is all the ancillary parts, the grills, the headlights, fuel cap, and then wiper, and then finally all the glass, the headlamps and the doors and the windscreen. And that will be that. So actually we're not that far off. I never like to rush. I want to get this one finished. I do want to get this finished because it's just become like a shelf of doom, which I've said before I never do. Shelf of doom I think is a bit of a failure, and not like me to have a kit that's sat on a shelf, on a box, partially built for well over 2 years. It's very unlike me, so I'm going to not continue that trend in the future. And I choose what I want to build and just build it as I've always done to completion. But as you can see, we are actually getting there, and there's not a huge amount left to do. I'll just let you have a quick final look at this before I move it out of shot, and we'll talk about instructions generally. So yeah, that's my Gulf Porsche, Steve McQueen Le Mans Gulf Porsche, which of course in the movie is the one he crashes. A lot of people, like at Telford, they'll depict it in the crashed scenario. Several people have done that, and they've looked really good, I've got to say. Very, very well done. So I've just got to get all these ancillary parts and bring the two top and bottom together, because at the moment it's not actually connected properly, as you can see. But we're almost there. We're almost there. We've got that engine pretty much done, as you can see. Yeah, and I'm fairly pleased with it really, but not the greatest kit. It makes me a bit nervous. I've also got the Nigel Mansell FW14 Williams, the car he won the World Championship with in 1992, the Williams FW14B. I'm a bit nervous now about building that because this is now my second Fujimi race car kit, and neither of them have been brilliant experiences. Not too bad, and I've added on this one, I've added quite a few bits of photo etch, but there's a lot of photo etch, as you can see, I haven't used, probably most of it in fact, 3/4 of it not used. But I do believe you've got to be careful with photo etch. You can buy photo etch and you can start to feel obliged to use every part of it, and that's another mistake I think, because you've just got to look at it and think, especially when you've got high finishes involved and it's very, very tricky working with some of these materials. You're going to have to use super patience, lots of super glue. Be careful, you know. Anyway, that's my advice. I'm very much one that I'll add the photo etch if I think it's noticeably superior. For example, there's the windscreen wiper. I'm just debating. I think I probably will use the windscreen wiper because on the kit one it is a bit clunky and chunky. I want to think about it. I haven't made my mind up. The trouble is, the kit one's a bit too thick and clunky and chunky, and arguably the photo etch one is too thin and flat. So neither's absolutely ideal. This is where a 3D printed part might have been perfect. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to move this out of the way because we are pretty much almost done with this kit. And I'll be looking forward to revealing it hopefully by end of November, all being well. Certainly don't want it to drag into December because I want to get starting on something else. I haven't quite decided yet, but of course there's, well, I haven't done. It's the Sea Harrier. I think I've got to get that because it is the year I should have done it anyway. So let us move this over there where it's going to be safe. I think I don't want to do anything too ambitious with it. Don't have any accidents, do we? And we'll move the box over there, out of the way, and let us talk about instructions. So just seen a perfect example of, okay, that one has got specific errors. But even taking the errors out, it's not the easiest to follow, and they have this thing of showing you an arrow. Where was that a good example? It has arrows. It doesn't really show you, unlike that recent Zokimori, the BF109 G14, they show every angle of how things attach. Now, Fujimi are quite the opposite. They just have random arrows that point roughly in the direction where it's supposed to go. And there's several in the kit where I felt that some of these arrows could have been a bit clearer, to be honest. You know, I mean, there's one here, arrow. It doesn't show where it goes into, exactly what it goes into. This one here, that arrow is very vague. There's a lot of that. There's quite a few where it just doesn't really make it clear. Another one here. Another example here. These arrows are the drive shafts. Oops, sorry, here. Drive shafts. Very vague, just goes in. And then when you get to the part, you realise it's not that clear exactly how deep it should go in. Because Fujimi's parts, they kind of... they're not like Tamiya or, you know, wingnut wings or anything like that. They don't just click in and there's only one way to put them in. No, there's lots of ways to put them in, and you're left guessing, and you don't want that. Anyway, let's talk about others. I've got a couple of examples out here. I thought we'd start with the Tacom, I think, actually. Another example of a manufacturer who produces really nice kits, but not the best instructions, not by a long shot. And I could have selected any one of a number of Tacom kits, but I've just got one to hand, so I thought we'd go with the Seawolf. If I can get the box open. Do I just make it quicker? Slip that on. There we go. Right, so I've seen the kit before. This is part of the Falklands theme, if you like, genre that I'm quite interested in, and a very nice kit it is too. Let's just have a look at their instructions, because on one or two of their tanks I've noticed from time to time they don't always make them the clearest, it has to be said. Put that over there out of the way. Have a look at this Seawolf Sea Dart. Is this a resealable one? Have I opened these before? No, I think I have. So, just get ourselves in here, see what they come up with. So, let's have a look. Seawolf Sea Dart. Now, my recollection is that they don't use much English. Now, they do at the beginning. See it here. They start off well, paint's required, and you think, oh excellent, there's going to be plenty of simple clarity here. Then it's got parts but it doesn't say which ones, if any, are not used. And then it just has no writing, and this is why I have a beef with Tacom. I do like their kits though, don't get me wrong, but I don't like this complete lack of any words. I mean, at all. There's nothing. You're just not going to find writing in here. Yeah? See what I mean? Oh, make two. Oh, I take it back. They've used a word. And it just goes on. Doesn't tell you what they are. It doesn't tell you what part you fit into what. You know, and you get in other kits, as we'll see in a minute, descriptions of what they are. So I think I've got a fair beef here, a fair reasonable beef. Oh, make. They obviously only know the word make. It must be the only one that they've translated. How very bizarre. And then you get to the end, and you get the ammo MiG, and then you get some English at the very end, once you've finished actually building it, or hopefully the right way. But there's nothing to help you there. There's just nothing. It's page after page of diagrams, basically. It's just a diagram. There's no data. It's just diagrams, pictures of parts with arrows. It's not much use, is it, really? And especially on some of their tank models that are really like the ones with the interiors that are really quite convoluted and complicated. You probably need a little bit more than what they're offering there. So that's another example of bad practice. I mean, border model, in fairness, are worse than Tacom, because they also don't, I think, have quite such good clarity in the diagrams. So another one that has a lot of vagueness. You know, they don't have proper descriptions. It's not very helpful, is it? Right, seal that back up. Yes, we can. And we will move on, and I will give you a couple of other examples. So, Meng. Let's try Meng. Now, I didn't get the kit out because it's quite a big box, but the Yank Panther, the tank destroyer, World War II tank destroyer. Let's have a look at their instructions by comparison. Having seen Tacom's complete lack of wording, which I say is another border trait. Now, in Meng, they do give you some history, which is nice in English. That's quite good. Then they give you some basic info at the beginning, and then now they've done it better, haven't they? Look at this. Here you can see that they are putting some writing in there, and they say, look, drive sprocket, road wheel A, road wheel B. Suddenly we have clarity. This is much better. Lower hull assembly, it's described properly. Yeah. Suspension C. Opposite. I mean, this is good. This is exactly what we want. Optional part. Same for both sides. Tells you what they're, instead of having these meaningless symbols, which we've no idea what they mean, and everything has to be interpreted or guessed at, these guys are doing it properly. So why can't the others? And these guys are made in China, aren't they? I don't really understand it. They're doing a good job here. You know. Hull armour assembly too. Well, fine. Excellent. Drill a hole. And it doesn't say, like, on, was it the Border ME109? I seem to recall on that one there was a couple of examples that said, drill hole! How deep? How long? You know, what diameter? Oh, I don't know. You can't just say drill a hole. You're bound to get it wrong. You're going to be faffing around just because they can't be bothered to actually put it in the instructions. Well, our friends here at Meng are not doing that. They're doing it properly, aren't they? So this is actually quite good. So this is worth looking at as an example of how the Chinese are doing it right in some cases. But we still get, you know, one or two, like Hong Kong model. They're another bad one. HK models are bad for this. They also, just like Tacom, don't seem to have any wording if they can possibly avoid it. But, you know, here's an example of China doing it quite well. Certainly acceptable standard. It's fine. Happy with that. You know, things like this. Spare track. Thanks, that's a nice clear description. We know what it is, yeah? And what's this? Opposite. Upper hull assemblies. Lifting jack block. I mean, things that you need to know what they are. You need this information, don't you? Excuse me. Lifting jack block. Yeah. Which the others definitely wouldn't put in. Barrel cleaning rod tube, which again the others wouldn't bother saying that. This is absolutely great. Cable, it tells you the length it should be. Yeah, this is good. This is good. And then we've got lots of little descriptions about the hatch, open or closed. We're not left to try and guess exactly what they're trying to get at. They're being clear, you know. Gun breech assembly here. All good. Yeah, I mean, this is the way it should be done. I think that just shows, really, Meng. I've just demonstrated that it's not that difficult. Okay, it's not Tamiya, it's not Zokimura. It's Certainly not wings, is it? But it's adequate, you know, it's adequate for what is needed, and we can't have nothing. I mean, obviously if you want to go the full hog, you'd go and get yourself a guidebook like, I don't know if we saw this, I'll come to that in a second actually. I think we just need to finally look at Tamiya. Because they get the balance just about spot on, I think. Let's just have a quick peep in here. One of their recent armour kits, the Achilles, in the last 12 months, isn't it? Let's have a look at this one. Nice plastic, we've done a review so we've seen that, but let's just talk about how it can be done. We saw Wingnut Wings, who probably took it to the nth degree, which is nothing to complain about. It's exactly what we really want, is what they did. Tamiya come pretty close. If I can put this on the one side, that won't help me at all. Best laid plans. Here we go. Now then, if we have a look at this, a quick flick into how the experts do it. Here we go. So now on Tamiya's instructions, now they don't have a detailed historical write-up because they do it on a separate sheet, which is absolutely brilliant, absolutely great, and I like it being separate as well. Now it's all in Japanese, and then we have. It's in English, and they even do the diagram also separately in English with the proper English call-outs showing what the parts are on the tank or whatever the vehicle is. Full detail, history, variants, how it was developed, some photographs from in theatre, exactly what you want, full specification of the vehicle, its performance, its dimensions, weight, etc. That's what we want, isn't it? That's what we want. So that's very good, that's a great start. Then we get into their instructions, and you know, they don't over communicate. You could say that the Zokimura over communicate perhaps a little bit. Tamiyas are good at this sort of data, you know, giving it clear and making it abundantly obvious what they are driving at, attaching suspension, yeah, road wheels, drive sprockets, it's all there, isn't it? Polycaps, and then, you know, they give you the paint call-outs, attaching the hull parts. I mean, you could argue that actually Meng even give more detail than maybe Tamiya do, but Tamiya make theirs so obvious, you know, even down to, you know, showing you the side arms and things. That's what you want. You want clarity. I think they've kept it simple in this kit, to be honest. But you know, and here we another thing. They've got figures. They've got figures which we want. So, loader, the gunner, and the commander of the tank. That's a tank destroyer in this case, isn't it? But it's all there. And then some other detail here. Turret was located slightly clockwise. When the driver is sat with his head out of the hatch, obviously, so he doesn't bang his head on the turret. It's quite an occupational hazard with these, I think. I'm sure there must have been some indicator inside the tank. And then it shows, you know, all the different positions. And this is well done. This is a bit Zokimura, how you can position your figures. So it's there, and it's giving you clarity, how to position these guys, the relationship between the figures and the sort of parts, and the there you go, there's a machine gun. Shows the relationship of the figures relative to the rest of the turret, and then all their ancillary parts, accessories. It's not over communicating. I think this is the beauty with Tamiya. They keep it simple, but all the essential data is included, which is what you want. I still think they're probably all around the best, but other manufacturers like Wingnut Wings have gone even further, haven't they? And we've seen beautiful photographs and colour illustrations showing the actual colours, which is nice. Gas patch models, they did this, didn't they, as well, with the ME163B Comet. Excuse me. They did a very good job with that. That was a little bit Wingnut Wings like, showing the actual colours in colour diagram and illustrations. It's not alcohol, it's coffee today. Finally, if you want to go to the nth degree, because you get so frustrated, sadly they don't do these for all kits, of course. And I don't know if I've ever shown this one before. I don't think I have. It's not, obviously it's not a new kit. It's a kit that I have waiting in the wings, waiting for a new cabinet at some point to have the room. But having got that kit and all the extras, here's another extra. And when we had my just a flashback to my stash rant video about how stupid is your stash. Something I never mentioned, of course, was all the books and the magazines that we buy. I mean, for the Falklands, I must have bought 4 or 5 magazines and books. And here we are again. And how much are these costing? It's about, I think it's about 17 or 18 pounds, maybe more, 20 pounds, something like that. Not a cheap thing. Adds to your value even more, doesn't it? So if I put this inside the box, that would have been another 20 pounds on top of the value. Anyway, we digress. Let's have a little look at it. So it's Brett Green with the work of Chris Wauchop, who is the famous painter that Brett uses. So be wary. It may have probably all been painted by him, but it's a beautiful book, and you know this is the nth degree. So if your instructions are not great, this is what you'll obviously use as a reference to try and give yourself the best possible opportunity on things like the colours and how the actual aircraft look. Just be wary that, again, you've just seen there in those colour photographs, a lot of those are from museum piece aircraft or restored aircraft, which doesn't always mean that they're 100% accurate with everything, but they're very, very nice. And I think if you've got a really nice project like one of these expensive kits from Tamiya or Zokimura in 32nd scale, then these are worth buying even at £20, because it's going to enhance your experience. You're going to get other people's techniques, advice, hints and tips that come out. Lots of ideas, best practice, little tricks, using lighter fluid with some oil paints to make a thick wash. That's an interesting one there. And you're just getting the benefit of some very experienced modellers. You know, you get people like Spencer Pollard, he's another one, isn't he, that often works with these guys, and you know, it's always interesting and useful to listen to the learnings and the techniques that people like him and Brett Green, etc., and Chris Wauchop and all these other guys have developed over time. Really, you can get, you know, a real leg up and improve your techniques. Phil Flory's another one, isn't he? And Matt Ball, people like that. These guys they're all strong in various different areas, I think, in modelling, and yeah, there's always something you can learn by watching them or reading their books, and you end up, you know, with the ability to create a much finer final product, if you like. I mean, I got this gloss level on this Porsche. I won't get it out again, but the Porsche there. That was somebody else recommended a product and said you should try this because it's really glossy. And I think one of the reasons I was holding back with that kit was fear of not being able to get the gloss level right. I said this previously. And I think if you can find a shortcut or find something that will work for you, then by all means you should take it. And that's where these come in and a little bit different from your instructions, because you are gaining the experience of somebody having built the kit as well. And you might think that you can get overloaded with information, but as long as you don't become too paranoid about it, you know. But they're worth reading. The photographs especially give you ideas about, for example, with the Mosquito, classic example here on the front cover. This looks like it's been hand airbrushed without stencils. Some of the actual finishes were like that. Some of them weren't. Some of them were stencil painted from the factory at de Havilland's. And then some of them didn't when they were getting pushed for time. They would just spray them, you know, as is. So again, you shouldn't get too bogged down with worrying about, oh, I'm not sure if it should be, you know, some models say, oh, that's wrong, that should be stenciled, and they weren't like that. Spitfire, they weren't like that. Well, I think especially later in the war, I think, yeah, aircraft like that, some of them were resprayed in theatre, on the battlefield, so to speak. They weren't perfect. Same with the invasion stripes. Everybody says about D-Day invasion stripes for the Normandy campaign and onwards. They weren't beautiful straight white and black lines either. They were just, some of them were brushed on with sweeping brushes we used to actually brush the paint on, just to get it on there as quick as possible, you know. So don't be too frightened about the accuracy. Okay, with the Le Mans sports car, yes, that's a little bit different because they are, or a motorbike or anything that's very precise like that, they're presented with sponsorship decals and they tend to be looking very perfect, and that is why people are put off them a little bit. Whereas you can get away with a lot of things on an aircraft, and certainly on armour. You can't do that with cars and motorbikes and racing cars and things like that. A lot of them are presented at a race pristine at the start of the race, so if that's the way you're trying to present it, then you've got to be aware you're going to have to get a very high finish. So it's worth getting these resource books rather than just reading the instructions and not being able to read Japanese or whatever the issue is. Just be aware that it's horses for courses. So yes, that's very challenging. This is a factor in why I was so long-winded in doing that. I think I was like, oh, this has got to be perfect. It's for Steve McQueen. I'm a big fan of Steve McQueen. I want this to look really nice, like his race car at the start of the Le Mans movie. And I think it will look like that. I think we're almost there, aren't we? But you know, no thanks to Fujimi. Thanks very much. They're no help at all, especially not getting the lights right. That was, yeah, that's quite a basic thing really. Only a cursory glance at one of the actual cars makes you realise they've got it wrong. Anyway, there we go. Not a very long one today, just a general chit chat really, a bit of a progress report. Next time you see the Gulf Porsche, it'll be finished very soon, I hope. As I say, I'm going to probably go on to do this Harry. I quite fancy doing this Achilles, and actually the Jag Panther, because we've got a bit of a Normandy 1944 vibe going on there. And these are two kits that I could build into models that I do actually have some just about enough room for. I could squeeze them in. I've got this Normandy 44, or not just Normandy, because I've got a T-34 Russian tank in there as well, Soviet tank. But I do quite fancy, you know, I've got two here that are obvious rivals on the Normandy battlefield. Both excellent kits, and yeah, I'd quite like to do a bit of armour during the winter, so I might have a go at that as well. So what I might do is a bit of a twin approach. I might start the Harrier and maybe get one of these underway at the same time. I might play myself in with the Tamiya, move on to the main when it's many tracks later. Anyway, the other thing is that I wanted to mention before I go, it's the IPMS Scale Model World show. As I speak to you, it's 5 days beforehand. Several of you keep asking me, am I going? And of course previously I've done a bit of an alternative show over the weekend, shown late in the evening, because I haven't been going, but I've decided this year I am going to attend. So yeah, I've missed it for 2 years thanks to COVID. Obviously it was cancelled the first time anyway, 2020. I think that, yeah, I think I'll go. I think I'll just be there for one day, probably Saturday the 12th. Whether it's actually me or my clean-shaven twin brother, who knows, but depends which one turns up on the day. Well, I think one of us is going to be there. So people laugh and say, oh, you know, you always wear that jacket. Well, the truth of my jacket is that I never wear this jacket anytime whatsoever apart from on YouTube for your enjoyment, so that's why it always looks quite new. So I'm going to break with tradition. I'm going to wear this outfit pretty much at Scale Model World, so it would help people to spot me. If you want to say hello, by all means do. I'm not looking for fans really, but yeah, if you're around, and I'll try and engage with as many people as I recognise as I can. It'd just be nice to get out there again a little bit, and I don't think it's going to be the biggest version of the show ever, and I think it'll be reasonably quiet still compared to, you know, 2019 and earlier, but that's got a bit of an appeal in a way. I think it'd be nice, perhaps a little bit quieter and more pleasant to walk around, but we shall see. We shall see. Anyway, I shall be there, proudly wearing my poppy, because it's the Remembrance weekend this weekend, lest we forget all the contribution and the sacrifice of so many millions who've fought to save the freedom of the world and continue to do so today. So yeah, I'll be proudly displaying my poppy, as you see here, for the poppy appeal. Hope you'll also wear a poppy. But yeah, come and say hello. I'm not on a stand or anything. I'm not sponsored by anybody or anything like that. I'll just be mulling around with all the rest of the public, but you might spot me or not, I don't know. If you do, just come and say hello, and it'd be nice to sort of put faces to names, perhaps. Anyway, I hope you enjoy Scale Model World this year. So it'd be nice to get back there and actually see the show again. It just feels like a long time ago now. I feel I've been making, the last 2 years, I made quite a lot of videos. I think I made something like 10 videos in total over 2 years. Just trying to keep people's interest and my own interest, because we couldn't go to the show. So it'd be really quite nice to go there and you know, talk to the suppliers, talk to Airfix, ask them if they're going to produce the Jag 48 scale and try and get the inside line, the hot tips I can then share with you. I don't think they're going to give me any hot tips, that's for sure. But anyway, talk to people like that, talk to Hobbyco, people like that, Tamiya's distributors and Italiaries, and yeah, and I think I might equip myself. I want to get myself some new supplies, try out some new things this year. I think I'm going to get myself some Tamiya lacquer paints. I've already got the black, but I think I want to get perhaps a range of them, so I'll probably be buying some paint. But we'll see how we go anyway. I also want some of those lovely coastal kits, dioramas that you've seen. They do bases, you know, like airfield base or racetrack bases and things like that. Might get one or two of those, they're quite nice. Anyway, there we go. Thanks very much for joining me. Hope you found it interesting. If you are going to Telford, say hello. If you're not, no problem at all. Hope you thought it was interesting. And I might well do a video after Telford just to say how it went, what interesting things I saw, anything that was noteworthy you might find interesting to talk about. Who knows, I might go onto the Edward stand and ask them what the hell they're doing with their decals. But yeah, it'd be quite interesting to have a sort of an after show report, if you like. I might try and do that next week. So stay tuned. In the meantime, happy modelling. Thanks very much for joining me. Don't forget to smash that like button and give us a thumbs up. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And if you are a subscriber, remember to ding that notification bell and check it's been dinged. And until see you soon, after Telford, thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, thanks a lot, and bye for now.